Welcome, everybody. This is the Cellf Code Podcast. I'm here with a very special guest. I am Master myself, the host of the podcast. If you're tuning in on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or tune in, welcome. You guys don't forget to subscribe as well as YouTube. Same thing. I'm here with a very, very special guest here, Akash Inti from New Jersey. My man is tuning in from New Jersey. We've been connected. It's my spiritual brother here, connected through IMC. And, IMCNation is a big part of, what it is that the Cellf Code stands for. So welcome, brother. A few things. Let me just give you a full introduction, and then I'll let you take the reins for a little bit. So like I said, Akash is from New Jersey. My intention with this episode is just to have Akash step on the stage and basically tell the world what it is that he does. What is it that makes Akash Akash, and what is his self reflection as to how does he perceive himself basically in this world. We want to go into detail about that. So we want to just basically give the value that you have, for the rest of this world. Talk about that. And three things I just wanted to comment on for you in particular. One thing is your charisma, charm, and character really comes out. Just as I've only met you online, brother, and this is the first time we're even have a real dialogue. So it's cool to be able to perceive that from the outside, without even really truly connecting, to that degree. So it's very, very cool. I like those characteristics about you. And what I also noticed, on all your Instagram posts that I've seen and I've watched, because we follow each other, you know what I'm saying? And just keeping up with you, I can see how well you deliver a message. And that's the thing that I admire. So I wanted to have you on and just really take the time to really break that down and learn from you on that level, to find out, how it is that you're truly delivering that message, and what their message is, and then also, I just wrote down you're a motherfucking genius, bro. I could tell, as a person from, I hold myself accountable for, not accountable, but I hold myself as a intellectual individual. That's how I perceive myself, so I can recognize that in somebody else, and I think you're a genius, brother. So without further ado, welcome. How you doing, brother?
Yeah, brother, thank you for the esteemed introduction. It's really, really an honor to be on and to have the opportunity to speak to your audience and tell my story.
Yes, sir.
One of the things that I've noticed about myself, and one of the things that I perceive about myself is that I see myself as a storyteller of the times of today and right now. And one message that came to me, I was watching a movie with a couple friends, and what came to me was this message that the storytellers. All right, cool. Yeah, so one of the things that I've been noticing is this idea of how do I see myself and the reflection of the self. And that is a storyteller. I see myself as a storyteller, specifically telling the story of these times. I've noticed, and one of the messages that I received is that those who can tell stories are truly, what I interpret as the storytellers are the gods. They're people who move others to move, both physically, mentally, spiritually. It changes the culture. The people who've always changed the world have been phenomenal storytellers. And that's not only telling stories through our words, but it's through our movements, it's through our actions, it's through the music that we create. And you being a martial artist understand this more than anyone. Just the movements of a martial artist move physically someone who's fighting against them, or they move whomever. So it's just, it's a concept of the storytellers of the God. It's an integral part to me. And that's what I found is one of my key roles in this life. And that's how I continue to evolve. And that's why I call myself a raconteur. A raconteur is a storyteller, but not just any type of storyteller who's engaging, who has something about them that makes them interesting to listen to. And it's something that resonates with me. I also kind of like that it sounds like raccoon. I just find that humorous. It's just funny. I just imagine like a raccoon in like a pirate suit or something like that. And I'm like, that's being a raccoon. But anyways, these are, I guess, a couple of the things that I've kind of brought to where I am. I mean, my story as it comes to date is like I grew up in New Jersey. New Jersey's always been my home. And so, yeah, that's where I meant like I mentioned, my story comes from New Jersey. I come from New Jersey, born and raised. Ended up going to high school around here, and I took a big fascination in biology. So ended up going to college, studying biology and biology and economics. I always loved financial markets. My dad was into IT and like absolute brainiac with computers and such. And he was always he was working on Wall Street when I was really young. So I'd always see him go on the train back and forth to New York City. And I was like, man, I want to do that one day. So one of my big things was I wanted to work at an investment bank, just because I saw my dad working in New York. I'm like, all right, I want to be like my dad. What little boy doesn't? And so I did that. I had an opportunity to work on Wall Street for a bit, and then I moved into the field of biotechnology consulting, strategy consulting. So kind of helping some of these the biggest drug dealers in the world come together and make big drug deals go on. So that's why I like to see it. A lot of fun, but moving forward into my journey, the way I see it is I'll end up in Hollywood, and I'll be doing some feature films in some way, shape, or form.
Okay.
I've been doing some modeling as well. I just had a shoot yesterday. And so I'm working on two businesses right now.
Okay.
One is kind of that entertainment business.
Right.
As I see it, kind of, I like to think
Is
of it
that
as
so? Is that entertainment business? The entertainment business is centered around your the modeling. Is that what it is, or what?
That's a part of it. So the modeling, the feature films, that'll be all a part of it. I like to
Gotcha.
think of it also as kind of the men's lifestyle, or putting together videos, really kind of in similar ways that Arash and Vince put together some videos, content like this. That'll be another branch of it as well.
Wow.
So that's one business.
Yeah.
That being known as Society of the Rising Suns. And then the second business is Inti Syndicates, where I'd be working together with those who are looking to really expand in particularly influencers who are looking to expand in the social media space, and working with them on strategies on how to really make them stand out, how to draw upon their essence and what makes them unique, and then giving them some ideas in terms of content, as well as patterns of putting content out, and really working with the influencer to make being an influencer a lifestyle that they can live and attain. So
that's huge.
Business Inti Syndicate. So that's where I'm at right now. The way I see it, I mean, working with everyone in IMCNation, that's kind of where everything births from, in many ways. That the values and the philosophies and the ethics are all of both of these businesses are steeped deeply in the ethics of IMCNation.
Yeah.
And those who have met through a long.
Yeah, I want to add to that. The process of you deciphering like your ethics and your values for yourself. Can you sum that up do you have a slogan or a philosophy for either one of those businesses that kind of just sums that up? Like, what is that? I know, because that's probably what you live by, right? That exact philosophy that you're creating from. So what is that? If you could put that in words, what would that be?
Yeah, I've got two philosophies that I live by. The first, and this is the one for Society of the Rising Suns: keep up, thrive, stay sexy.
Yeah.
So they're very short, succinct little sayings, but they embody.
They're with your Instagram post, right? Like
yes.
That's the same. Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Yeah, I love that.
And then the second one, more so along the lines of Inti Syndicates, I'd say is judge me, fuck you. And again, same type of a lot. These ideas are very much, they come from IMCNation, or they blend along with that, and partly originate from it, but also partly originate from other philosophies that I studied, including Stoicism, yoga, and so on. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. Can you talk about your the process of you? Because I was looking through your Instagram and your, as well as your YouTube, and I just saw that you had listed on there that you're a yogi, as well as a mystic. Well, I perceive you as a mystic, based on the content that you share and just the conversations, the way that you carry yourself, and the storytelling in a way has a sense of mysticism to it. So what is it that brought you down that path? Was that something that you just always wanted to do, like in terms of doing yoga and storytelling and whatnot, or how did you get there to that point?
Yeah, it's funny because storytelling, or I mean, yoga in and of itself, it almost started because of women, right? Like I saw
Yeah.
beautiful women going into the gym, like in
Yeah.
yoga pants, and I was like, all right, I kind of want to go. I kind of want to be there. So that's kind of, in
Right.
some senses, that was a part of what brought me there. I'm going to be
For
completely
sure.
candid. But the other part was back in college, I took a meditation class,
Mm.
and as part, it was like a 1 credit course, and I just found myself like, because college was like in certain periods, it was like a lot. Like at one
Yeah.
point, I was taking 19 credits.
Oh, wow.
I was interning on Capitol Hill, and I was working in the lab at the time. Was
Wow.
interviewing for jobs on Wall Street, and I had a girlfriend, and it was my like my social life was like huge, you know, like there's so much going on. I'm like, all right, I
Right.
need something like just
You were,
like
you were, you were a
ground
beast in that
myself, and
world
that's why I found.
before you were an actual beast, right?
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
So the
hell
meditation class helped with that. And
yeah.
then after college, I was like, all right, I still need to, I need to like be in that, like that meditation is so important to ground, especially when a man is doing a lot. It's important to, there's a lot of movement. Stillness is just as much a movement as movement is.
Absolutely.
So I found that in yoga in and of itself. I found a lot of these movement practices, these postures, to be not only phenomenal for the body and clearing the body, whether it be the vasculature, the nervous system, the musculature, etc., but also for the mind and to quiet the mind. I found working with some of these big biopharmaceutical companies, advising business strategy is like it's a lot. We're working sometimes billion-dollar transactions at the time.
Wow.
And so there's a lot riding on these things. And so one
sure.
screw up there like really has huge impacts on not only the companies, but patients down the road. So there's a lot of pressure and whatnot. So I found that kind of in yoga, I found that stillness and that silence and that quiet that I needed. As it alludes to, or as you were talking about mysticism, it's been something that I've just kind of almost picked up from yoga in and of itself. It felt like a natural extension of me. It felt like an easy thing to continue along that path. And I've always been intrigued and interested in the esoteric path. I'm a Freemason myself. I'm a Master Mason as well.
Really?
And it's been something that's been really, really incredible to study and to be involved with. So.
Yeah. Very cool, brother. That's huge. What I get from the way that you just described that right there, there's such a, I feel like this is probably what pulls in the women, but there's such a sense of mystery, you know, behind everything that you do, you know, and everything that you are involved in, you know, there is that sense of mystery. And you know, maybe does that come from the mysticism, or can you talk about that? Like, where does that mystery, that sense of mystery, because I used to be fascinated with mystery books and whatnot. So I mean, not mystery from the game, but you know, actual mystery books. Just growing up, you know what I'm saying, in school, I was just fascinated with that. So movies that had to do with mysteries or books or anything of that sort was part of my fascination. So was that something for you as well, or how did you arrive at that?
You know, I think I've found that it's due to silence, like chosen silence. Like I found that people will notice about me that's like, okay, look, this guy's gone to some places that society views as like really high and mighty, and like Wall Street, Capitol Hill, the pharma belts, like all of these like big things. Like I name drop those things, and it's like all of a sudden people are like, okay, that means in some way, shape, or form like high status. But to me, walking those halls, being in those rooms, I'm used to it now. Like I can easily talk to a board member of some biotech company and like relate to them almost on the same level, or in some levels even higher, because I was so involved in like the details of certain things that they would look to me as an expert. So in that particular scenario, so I think the mystery almost comes from, how does an individual get to all of these places at like a reasonably young period in life? And not only just get to them, but then also succeed and thrive in them. And in most of these settings, people always recognize that there's some X factor about this individual. There's something about this person that like in each room, like there's something that attracted them to that. And I think, I don't know how to describe it. I don't know how to characterize it other than almost my study of social dynamics. All of the investment that I've put into myself it's whether it be in the yoga studio, whether it be on the streets, or whether it be in a nightclub. I know how to conduct myself in a manner that's intriguing, and I don't know what I do, because at this point it's just how I am.
It's just innate. That's so cool, brother. Something that I noticed that when you're sharing on your Instagram, you have a multitude of different animals that you share, and those are usually coupled with I give you, correct me if I'm wrong, but they are usually coupled with the caption, what was it? Keep stay sexy,
Keep up, thrive, stay sexy.
keep up, thrive, and stay sexy. Yeah. Is there one animal in particular that is like your go-to, or is it just a combination of all of those?
I'd say it's a combination. I mean, I can definitely see there's a few animals that like really stick out to me.
Yeah. Okay.
One being the otter, which is something that people are like, the otter, why the otter? They're incredible hunters, like phenomenal hunters.
Yeah.
And they often travel in packs, and they're just, what I really like about them is how agile and adept they are in the water. It's like you see them move, and it's like, it literally looks, to me, they're like a dragon. They're like a water dragon in the way that they move.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
If you watch like a video, just like a 15-second, 20-second video of an otter moving, like fighting a fish, it just moves, and like literally like the dragon behind your left shoulder. It looks like that in terms of the way of its movement, and that's something that kind of captivates me. So
I've always been fascinated with otters as well, and then it was like you were describing. I mean, that's a great analogy. They even been a water dragon, but it was the movement that was always attractive to me about how they play and how their sense of flow was. They would at one moment be on top of something, and next thing you know, they're in the water and swimming and everywhere. So I get that. That's so cool. Cool.
And they play as well. That's one of the things. They're super playful. Like to me, it's almost like they're just light about life everywhere. You don't see like an otter like drooping its shoulders, like walking around. Like it doesn't even make sense. You know what I mean? Like human beings might do that stuff, but like for an otter, it doesn't even make sense. So.
Yeah, 100%. Exactly. So cool. So you said that's the first one, okay, the sea otter, and then
that's probably the biggest one. I would say others include a snake. I've always been fascinated with reptiles and snakes, and again, it's just this movements, right? It's always like this movement. It's almost like a S type movement of the way a dragon moves or the way a snake moves. A sidewinder snake, an otter is a great example of it. Even birds, when they fly, it's like it's just something that I notice. It's like this whole like sinusoidal movement. It's something that if you observe, like I observe sex, like the sex of a woman, like that's kind of how her body moves. Is like it's in this sinusoidal movement, and so there's something about that type of movement in and of itself that's innate. It's a frequency. It's literally that's a vibration. Like that type of movement is a vibration in and of itself. So animals really that move in that manner. So again, just reiterating, otters, snakes, sometimes birds are like eagles. Tend to resonate with me as well.
Yeah, that's huge, man. That's so cool. Wow. Yeah, that takes my mind so many different places. I'm like, wow, that's so cool. Because I mean, I don't know if you've seen the logo for the Cellf Code. But the logo in itself has, two snakes in it that represent the two C's, and they connect through the DNA. So there's a whole meaning behind that. You said you had questions for me. What questions do you have? Before I get back into mine, what questions were those?
One of the things I've observed is that you're a black belt, right? And so being a black belt in and of itself, like, boom, that's huge. I've never studied the martial arts in any capacity. I put me out on a street fight. I would probably win in some way, shape, or form, probably talking my way out of it. But I tend to be a pacifist about my approach to life. But I'm curious, as it relates to kind of what brought you into the martial arts in and of itself, and not only just brought you into it, but then like, why did you stick for it to achieve the level of black belt? And then obviously you're continuing to study, you continue to practice it. Like I'm curious as to that journey in and of itself of how you began the martial arts and then what compelled you to stick with it.
Okay, yeah, great questions, man. Something I actually haven't even talked about, so thank you for that question. I appreciate it. So me being raised, so my dad was he started doing karate when I was probably 6, so he was about 2 years in when I first started. He's the one that kind of initiated the process for me. So I was 8 years old. I remember saying that, they were like, they didn't really ask me, they were just like, you're doing karate. So at that point I was kind of like inducted into that. And when that happened, I was kind of I was fascinated by it, honestly. Initially I was very, very fascinated as to the different techniques, the structure of it. I wasn't thinking that way. I didn't, have words to put it back then when I was 8 years old. But I just remember being so fascinated with it, and after a while, it grew on me. I didn't want to go because I felt like I had to go at that point. But what I guess transformed into me sticking around with it through the years, because obviously down the road I had more options, as to whether I wanted to stay in it or not. What's held me in it is just that sense of structure. I know that every time I was practicing karate, learning or instructing, or just anytime I was participating in that art, it felt like an art, but it was an art that had a structure to it. So it's a part of my balance, I would say. When I had about 6 years stint where I wasn't, practicing karate at all, and that was probably like the most turmoil, that I experienced in life in that respect, because I was just outside of it. And I didn't realize that until really till I came back up here in Phoenix from Tucson in 2016. So since then, yeah, I've been kind of on and off with it, but the last 2 years I've just been, fully engaged in it. And I truly love the process, the traditions, the practices. It's everything that I've learned over the years is very, very practical, very, very, see what's the right word. I think practical is probably the best word right now, just to describe that. But like I was saying, it has a certain structure to it. And that, for me, for my life pattern, if you could say, or my self-code, I need that structure as a part of, how I am, in order for me to have that sense of balance, because I like you, I feel it's weird, bro, because as we're connecting right now, I feel literally like a reflection of you, because I have that passiveness or whatever it is that you described. But I feel like I have that as well. And I believe this is the actual balance, so it's like it's a yin yang in that respect. I can see the duality of me being a part of karate, but also being a part of things like yoga, and well, we're beasting out now, so that's a whole nother level. But yeah. So I truly enjoy yoga. I enjoy like Tai Chi. I've been practicing before, which is a different form of martial arts, but it's very, very soft, And then there's harder forms of martial arts as well. So it's just really just it's been a train of fascination, over the years, and it's grown. And now understanding, martial arts to the degree, and really understanding through everything that we understand through IMCNation, through Raj, it's just taken on a whole new effect for my life. I truly feel like every time I get in class, I know I grow. And it's like every single day that we beast out, similar to that. But every single class I get in, I have the opportunity to teach, and I have the opportunity to connect to different people and find out. Really, I feel like I'm pulling that's what I like about teaching karate in particular, is I like pulling the warrior spirit out of the young, generation, and even older gentlemen or older women that participate. Everybody has, that spirit in them if they're participating in the martial arts. And I think it's really something that everybody can get involved in, So it's just been, for me, it's been a history of fascination with it, and that's grown over the years. It didn't start like that, when I was 8 years old, it didn't start that way, but over the years, it's just evolved and grown more and more. So, yeah, man, that was a great question. Appreciate that.
Yeah, that brings me to my next question so the podcast is entitled Cellf Code, and it's not only Cellf Code in the sense of like SELF, but self in the sense of CLLF. Right. You also mentioned in the logo of it is the design of the DNA, and I've got a tattoo of DNA here myself on my chest. Oh, wow. Like DNA means a lot to me. It was my first tattoo, actually. So I'm curious as to Cellf Code. Will you talk a little bit about this? As to what is Cellf Code in terms of how you see the podcast itself? Yeah. But then also why the CLLF and
for sure.
Nature, like the allusions to
nature. I'll try to tie it all together in one answer, but actually I had talked about it on my last podcast, so I'll just expand on that a little bit more. But essentially, the Cellf Code is like you said, it has the two snakes on it, and then it connects by that DNA in the middle. So that connection with the DNA, I'm essentially here. Let me change the format here. So when we are engaging in conversation, how I see it is, and the reason why I formulate the pictures and the thumbnails, that I create the way that I do, with two people on both sides, is, because there's a connection that's happening in that moment. Even right now, like I said earlier, we're creating that form of connection. My battery's gonna die. Oh, we're creating that connection from my side to your side as well, and being that reflection of each other in that moment is how I see that being a reflection of the logo in particular. So the logo is basically we're connecting our DNA, and the DNA is where it kind of connects to the cell part. So the cell and then the F. I spelled it that way because I understand that we in relation to the rest of the world, we are all like our own individual cells. If you can understand your own cells, you know what I'm saying? We all have our own cells. In comparison to the rest of the world, we all have our own like nucleus and proton and electron. So we have our negative and positive energy that's flowing within us, right? And that makes us our own individual cells. So it's like as within, so without. It's kind of parallels that idea to where, as the cells are in us, we are cells for, something bigger, and that's a whole story in itself. But there's, the planets, I believe, mirror the chakras of the body as well. And, understanding that you can see how we are all playing our parts as like cells in the universe, in a sense. If you look at, compared to the galaxies that exist, us, we would be that microscopic, you know what I'm saying? We would be that small on that level if there were, extraterrestrials, looking at us from that perspective. So that's how I kind of connect the cell part of the Cellf Code. And does that make sense at all? Feel like I was
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
No, it's a great question. I appreciate it. So yeah. Excellent, man. Well, that was some great questions. I appreciate those questions. I got two more. What is your message to the world in particular? If this was your stage for the world, what would if you had just a sentence or two to say to the world, what would that message be exactly to the world?
Yeah, the first thing that came to mind is sincere, not serious.
Wow.
It's something that resonates with me specifically. And if I look back into my old self, I noticed I was taking things so seriously, so literally, so heavy in many ways. Yeah. And it got me pretty far in life. I mean, wow. I am right where I am right now. Yeah. And I'm still alive, so there's a lot to go from here. I've always found that the people who are more enjoyable to be around are the people are gravitated towards or attractive are those who are sincere. They're like true in the way that they're speaking. Yeah, that's not serious. It's enjoyable. Like they recognize it's that duality to it of that sincere is like it's a heart to heart connection, or it's a full body to body connection.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's not something that's heavy. It's something that's light. It's something that's enjoyable, playful, flirty, sexy. And I found that I think that's something that's needed in this world more than ever. The spirit of lightness, the spirit of humor, the spirit of not taking anything seriously, especially in today right now, where everything is like taken so seriously and people get inflamed about things, whether it be political arguments or even the smallest of things, even in just small interactions, whether it be with family, friends, whomever. There's a lot of like people taking things almost too seriously, I found. And so that's my message to the world right now is sincere, not serious.
Wow. That's amazing, really. Love how you phrase that. Very cool. I love that is so necessary, in our world, like you said, especially during this time, to have that sense of play. But that kind of correlates to what we were talking about earlier with the otters, having that sense of play is so vital, I think, to every aspect of life. That would be the counter to being sincere is to be the counter to being serious would be sincere in that respect, I would say. And that's huge, brother. That's wow.
And one of the things that I learned in yoga teacher training as I was going through the course itself, they talk about there's the 7 axioms or the 7 truths of life. And one of them was referred to the fountain of youth. and it was that laughter and play are the fountains of youth.
Wow.
So it's when we approach things when we laugh in our day, or when we approach things from a place of like play, that's where we reconnect with our youth, and that's where some of the most creative energies come from, that we can possibly express. So that kind of goes along with that statement, if you will.
Yeah, no, it's huge. I think about, my nephew, right when you said that, right then, I got the image of my nephew. My nephew's, he's going to be 2 years old in October. And, something that I witnessed firsthand, like having a baby in the family in that respect. Like you said, that youthfulness is that in that play is everything that, did the IG go off?
I'm not hearing you right now, brother. It's,
you can't?
The audio's cut out on my end.
Uh-oh. I'm still live over here. Uh-oh. Can you hear me now or no? Can you hear on Zoom?
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, cool. Yeah, the Instagram cut off. That's my bad. I have to plug this up here. Probably gonna have to end the IG. Let's see here. Yeah, just a couple more questions, brother, and then I'll let you go. What is do you happen to know your astrological sign? When is your birthday? Is a better question.
Yeah, I'm May 28th, so I'm a Gemini.
Okay, very cool. Very cool. Yeah. What do you know anything about astrology at all?
Touch, not all too much, but I mean, I know most of the signs themselves. I have a semblance of an understanding of kind of how they relate to each other, but I would not consider myself an expert by any means.
Yeah. I mean, me either. I don't like to claim it, but I am fascinated by it. So the same fascination that I have with martial arts, it also falls in astrology, and I see the parallel. Oops. Let me I have to end the IG. Phone's gonna die on me. But so I see that same parallel, my fascination with martial arts and the fascination with astrology is strong in that respect. What is it that you know about Geminis in particular?
Well, I know that we're the most interesting sign of them all.
That's actually it's pretty accurate. That's funny.
As I look, some of the most what I find is like interesting people of time and generation have been Geminis. A couple include Donald Trump, Prince, Kanye West, John F. Kennedy. So some really, really interesting creative people have been Geminis. And I think one of the things that stands out about them is that they are, we are kind of willing to push the boundaries of things, very communicative. Communication is a huge key component of the sign itself. Light, the sign, it's an air sign in and of itself, so many things are very light. Creativity, I know things that people are like saying negatively about the sign, or things that maybe be seen as negative tendencies of the sign, or like almost like two-facedness, or characterizations of like this kind of like almost like two people in one type of thing, and I can definitely see it in myself. And I would also say almost like addictive behaviors, like very like addictive type behaviors. So these are things that I've kind of noticed about the sun, but that's what I know.
Yeah. Can you speak more about that? What is that you see? So you say you can see that parallel with how they talk about the Gemini being two sides of the self. What is that you see in yourself in particular?
Yeah, it's that almost like they can shine really, really bright. It's like that idea of like the light self and the shadow self, and almost like tapping into both of them just as strong. Whereas many other individuals from my perspective, or from what I've seen, are a little bit more even keeled, or kind of it's more in the middle. For Geminis, what I've seen, it's almost more on the extremes of like really tapping into that deep light side, but then also just as much into that deep dark side. And with a lot of those individuals that I mentioned, like I mentioned, each one of them really displayed that in their lives, or continues to display that in their life.
Absolutely.
So it's something that Geminis in that sense are not very predictable. You can't be like, okay, I know exactly what this person's going to do next. And to many people, that's kind of almost like uncomfortable. It's discomforting, disconcerting. So
for sure. Do you know what time you were born by chance? I'm gonna pull up your birth chart because there's a lot more aspects to you. What do you know? What time?
Yeah, I think it was 11. I think it was like 12:01, 12:03. It was like right just the turning of the day. I think it was like, yeah, between
Okay.
12:01 and 12:04. I think like 12:03.
So okay, 12:01 a.m.
Yeah,
And what year?
1994.
94. Okay. And you said New Jersey, right? That's where you were born.
Yeah, Paterson, New Jersey.
Oh, Patterson. Okay.
Quick
Yeah.
little
So
history lesson. Paterson was like one of the biggest. It was probably like the New York City of the time before, like in the early 19 or 1800s. It was like the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution in
really?
the United States. Yeah.
Wow, that's huge. That's not coming up on my end, man. You said Patterson, New Jersey, right?
Yeah, Paterson.
Oh, okay. I put two T's. One second. Have you seen the movie The Patriot?
I have not, no.
No, man, classic, man. Mel Gibson. Okay, there we go. Got it. I was just wondering because you said that's where the Industrial Revolution started. Well, no, I'm thinking of the Civil War. Never mind. I was gonna say that maybe that correlates to that movie at some point. Maybe that's where they were. Okay. So this is your birth chart here. Let's take a look. It's very interesting. Have you ever looked at your birth chart, or you just
Taking a look at it once, I think with a couple girls at one point.
really? Okay.
It's been a while.
Yeah, yeah. May 28th was the day, right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so it says your sun is a Gemini. So, well, do you know about the other aspects, the other planets?
Yes, I know there's the sun, the moon, and then each of the planets themselves.
The planets, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So your moon sign, the moon is obviously, or maybe not obviously, but the moon is what you're attracting. That's the type of energy that you're attracting. So your moon sign is Capricorn, which is interesting. It's a very, very grounding energy. Capricorn is obviously one of the earth elements. Like you said, Gemini is the air. So the air and the earth combination is very, very strong. It's a very strong combination to have overall, I would say overall. Your Mercury is also Gemini. So Mercury is like the planet of intellect, communication, and in conversation essentially. So you basically that's what you specialize in, and that's why hence you're a host of a podcast, you're a messenger, you know what I'm saying, and you're raconteur. Is that how you pronounce it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's it just aligns with your path, and so that's what I love about astrology is it kind of gives you a map to understanding yourself. As I was talking about earlier, like me having my structure, I understand that because I have I'm a Virgo, you know what I'm saying? So Virgo is very, very structured, very work oriented, and very health conscious, you know what I'm saying? And I understand those aspects about myself. So then I understand more of how to, utilize that in what it is that I'm doing, and to know that I'm aligned with my passions, you know what I'm saying, as I line it up with my birth chart. Because basically how I explain it to many people is that the birth chart is a blueprint, of your DNA, essentially, how you're hardwired, as you, at the time that you were born, the stars were in a certain formation. So that's how you get your birth chart. And based off that star formation, I believe that's how we are transcended from, the non-physical to the physical, I would say. And does that make sense at all? Have you ever?
Yeah, definitely.
That? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I love that, man. I love just breaking it down ourselves, you know what I'm saying, and finding out, what makes us, who we are. Your Venus. So Venus is, the planet of love, pleasure, fascination, I would say. And your Venus sign is a Cancer. So it's interesting, when you combine these different signs in the planets, as you find different aspects from each one of those signs, it gives you a different level of understanding that planet as well, and how it plays out for you. So you might be, Cancer is very, very emotional. Cancer is very homegrown in that respect. and also just very, very passionate. You know what I'm saying? This is the sign that comes right after the Gemini as well. So I don't know. Do you mix well with a lot of Cancer women at all? Do you know?
I mean, first girlfriend was a Cancer, so
really, wow.
Yeah, we dated for about 1.5 years, so I know Cancer well.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, so I mean, in the field of love and pleasure and all that good stuff, it would probably be best to connect with Cancers based off of that's how I read it. That's how I understand how I relate to other people. So I have a Gemini moon as well, so I can explain our connection a little bit better that way when I make sense of somebody else's birth chart. I can say, okay, they have this aspect to them. That aspect is also present in me, so I understand. Okay, that's the type of energy that I'm attracting in that respect because it's my moon sign. And for you, with the energy that you're attracting is very grounding, very centered and focused, and that's how I would explain that your moon sign at least. Very cool, man. Any other questions, brother?
Yeah, I guess I'm curious as to where you. So I know you've been interviewing. I think this is the 4th episode, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Where you plan to take the podcast and what your vision for the podcast is as it continues to expand and grow at record speed, lightning pace, and with Godspeed.
Absolutely. Hell yeah. Yeah, I see it just expanding more so with different types of characters. So, I mean, every character that I can say that has played on the other side of the screen, now you being the third one, I see each one of us connecting to a deeper level of ourselves and then starting from that point, and then moving forward in our life. So what that means for each one of us is I want basically creating a collective, so everybody that's being hosted on the podcast is leveling up. That's my intention, is to continue to see people, okay, now that I have a deeper level of understanding of myself, now as I move forward, this is my starting point. It's like I'm starting again in that respect. And so I just see it, I'm building a collective of that, and building that collective, I think we can, that's a movement in itself. There's a whole bunch of people that just understand themselves, and I truly know that, I know through my personal experience that the more that I get to know myself, the easier it is for me to relate to other people, so I can speak from that standpoint, as I understand, okay, Akash is a Gemini. I know how to better relate to, or I know he's going to communicate properly, when we're in a conversation, or intellectually we'll be able to connect, what I'm saying, from that standpoint, because we're aligned in that respect, and that's a deeper level of understanding myself, but also, of course, a deeper level of understanding you. So, just truly creating that platform and a collective of all these individuals who just understand themselves, and then we move forward. And, I want to progress to doing things, having an in-person podcast, where we're sitting down in front of the camera, might have a studio audience as well in that process, So, that's where I can say that's where it's going. And there was a second part of your question, right? Or no?
I think that hit it right on the head.
Okay, perfect.
That's all I've got on my end, brother. This has been phenomenal, and I really am grateful for the time and the opportunity to be a part of your cast, if you will.
Hey, I appreciate you showing up, man. I got one more question, because you and Yogi Chris are hosting, a collective podcast as well, and Enlightened Masculinity is the podcast. And what is the other one? The Science of Spiritual Growth? Is that what it's called? Or
yeah, Yogi Chris hosts the Science of Spiritual Growth on his own, and I co-host with him on Enlightened Masculinity.
Okay. Got you. I've seen you on a couple episodes of his. So, what is the key you can say to running the podcast? I know you guys have been in business for a year plus. Running that. What is the key to running a successful podcast? What would you say overall?
Yeah, it's a passion, it's a drive, it's finding, it's reconnecting every week of like, all right, why am I doing this? And reconnecting to that. To me, It's been a way of grounding, in this sense of, I've been on the entrepreneur's journey right now for about 9 months. And it's like, all right, well, the whole, I used to work a 9 to 5, and the whole going to work from 9 to 5 and that whole thing is like gone. So which I'm grateful for. I like having my freedom. I like having to be able to dictate and say what my schedule is. But having those, and at the same time having those places where I know no matter what, it's almost like a block in the schedule, as you were talking about in your for yourself, that idea of when I have these disciplines in place and I continue to come back to it, it grounds the individual. That structure, that's exactly it. To me, that was a part of it. It's like implementing that as a part of my structure. And it's things that I love to talk about. I love coming up with whether it be the ideas for the week with Yogi Chris, just checking in. It's almost in some senses like a digital diary or a digital journal as to where I was at and what were the ideas that were coming to mind. And then also sharing whatever I've learned and studied. I mean, I've over the past, like last year, I think I spent over $60,000 on self-education.
Wow.
And so it was almost like literally like that semester of college. And so to be able to see where was I at when, and to be able to discuss that, because oftentimes during the podcast itself, that was almost my venue or place to talk about, well, I've been learning about pickup and seduction, or I've been learning about digital marketing, or I've been learning about entrepreneurship, or whatever I was learning about in that particular moment. Oftentimes that's what we would start off and kick off with. So my advice to anyone continuing or starting a podcast or continuing to build and grow one that's going to be phenomenal and really worldwide is to reconnect with that idea of what is this podcast about specifically, and remind yourself of that before the podcast itself. Just as a little tidbit, one of the things that I usually do is I have like a small little ritual for myself before a podcast of anywhere from 5 minutes to 15 minutes. And almost doing that beforehand has been, I can see the differences as when I do that ritual and when I don't. It's profound and it shifts. So that's what I have as advice or insight.
That was awesome. Hell yeah. Well, appreciate you being on, brother. It was a pleasure. Once again, we can catch, so anybody tuning in right now, you can catch this episode on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, as well as TuneIn. We have new releases every Sunday of the actual video. So we will get this video next week. And it's a pleasure having Akash here as a guest for the Cellf Code. And thank you, brother. What is your Twitter handle for anybody that wants to follow up with?
Yeah, I use Instagram, so that's the best place to find me. Instagram or Facebook.
I meant Instagram, my bad. I said Twitter.
All good. Akash Inti, AKASHINTI. And you can find me on Instagram, Facebook. That's probably the best place is Instagram.
Instagram, yeah, for sure. Excellent. All right, thank you, brother. Appreciate it.